Let's think back to those first moments in a child's life. That baby is placed in the mother's arms, and everything in that baby's life is trying to figure out everything around it, identifying the mother, remembering the mother's voice, seeing the mother. And so everything is about identification. You think a little bit later on, as the baby grows, you give them something, and what's the first thing they do with it? They stick it in their mouth. And why do they stick it in their mouth? It's because they're trying to identify. They're trying to figure out everything in their world. And so they mouth it, they smell it, they taste it, so they understand what that object is. There's a famous quote by a philosopher named Merleau-Ponty. And what he said was, vision is the brain's way of touching the world. And what does that mean? Well, when I walk up to you and if I were to give you a pencil, you no longer have to pick that up and put it in your mouth and feel it and figure out what it is. You automatically know it because your vision recognizes it and understands that. So that's a big thing that we have, that we use our vision for. Next, we go into other areas of childhood development. We've got motor development. So you think about fine motor control. The baby's got the high chair full of Cheerios. It's using his eyes to be able to go and to guide that movement, to be able to pick up that Cheerio. And as the vision goes to guide and to see that, oh, success, we picked up the Cheerio. And so there's this loop between movement, visual development, and then fine motor development as that is starting to grow. Gross motor development, you think about a child, there's a toy that he wants, and so he falls over, crawls over to it, so that gross motor development is starting to develop from vision guiding it. Even like walking around or playing sports, it's vision that's guiding that movement. So vision's involved with a lot of childhood development. Even areas we wouldn't typically think of as being involved with vision. So things like communication, you'd think that's mostly an auditory development. Well, 80% of communication is body language. And what do we need to be able to understand body language? Vision. Even cognitive development. So you've got one apple, another apple, so you got 1 + 1 = 2. So even that kind of development, vision plays a huge role in that. This is typically when I get a wise guy in the audience that's going to ask me a question about, well, if there is a person that's blind, do they not develop? Well, you're right, they do development, but interestingly enough, their development is often quite a bit behind. Because it is a lot more difficult to have motor development, to have emotional development, all those things without vision. And the other interesting thing is now we have functional MRIs where we can see what areas of the brain that we're using when we do things. So they've taken blind people and they've had them pick something up to try to identify it. And guess what area lights up when they do that? The occipital lobe, the vision area of the brain. Why? Because they're using essentially vision, even though that they don't have the ability to see, they still are using vision to identify. So vision is really big. There's a great quote that I love as well that kind of communicates this even more. There's a man named Arnold Gesell. He's a contemporary with Piaget. He's one of the fathers of childhood development. And he said the intimate interdependence of the visual and action systems is nowhere more significantly displayed than in the sequences and trends of childhood development. Not one of the major fields of behavior, motor, speech language, and personal social, is normally devoid of visual content or visual controls. So interfused are the vision and action systems that the two must be regarded as inseparable. To understand vision, we must know the child. To understand the child, we must know the nature of vision. So even back, that was like 1930s, they're already understanding what a huge critical role vision plays in our childhood development.